Okay. Okay. Today is the 2nd of July, 2024, and we are in kibbutz Maagan at the Kfar Nofesh with, can you please introduce yourself to me?
My name is Yaakov Matek. Naturally, Yaakov is a name that I received through the years, but my real name is Yaakov Matek.
And Jacob, can you please tell me when you were born?
I was born in May 6th, 1924 in Chicago, Illinois. And I was just in the country actually a few weeks. In other words, my mother came when she was pregnant.
From where?
From Russia.
Do you know where in Russia?
I don't know where in Russia, but they were in Kiev a long time.
In the Ukraine, in
the
Kiev.
Ukraine. And I think they're from the Ukraine, actually.
Okay. So you were actually conceived in the old country.
Absolutely.
And born
And
3 weeks after your parents arrived.
Yeah. I didn't need any papers or fill any forms or...
You were a naturalized citizen immediately.
Right. I was born a natural citizen.
And tell me, did you have any other siblings?
Yes, I had a brother and a sister.
Their names?
My brother's name, he's 1 year, excuse me, he's 2 years older than me, is Ord, O-R-D, and it's in the Bible.
And your sister?
My sister's name is Dina.
Dina. So you're the middle child.
Right. Always.
Tell me, always. It's not easy being the middle child.
Well, I don't know.
This thing we call it the sandwich. Yeah?
Yeah, I suppose, but
Tell me, Yak, what is your family name?
My family name was Metikov.
Metekov?
Yes. And when people came into Ellis Island, they were having a hard time spelling the names that people who came from Europe, people who came from Europe, especially from Poland and so forth. So they would cut it down, that's all. And at Ellis Island, they cut our name down to Matek from Metikov. Now there was a river there called Metikov too.
In the Ukraine?
Yes.
Interesting. Now, what can you tell me about your parents? We're going to start with your mother.
All right.
What was her name? If you know her maiden name, what can you tell me about your mom?
My mother's name is Sonia.
Sonia.
Yes. When I think or talk about her, I always smile.
Why is that?
She was a terrific woman. And actually, I think she was the most important thing in the family.
Do you know what her maiden name was?
Sarah.
Maiden name.
Maiden?
Her family name before she got married.
No, I don't know.
Okay. So her name was...
Yes, it was Sonia.
Sonia.
Yes.
Sarah Sonia?
Well, it became Sarah in America, but her name was Sonia.
Okay, but do you know what her family name was? Like her...
Targov.
Targov.
Yes.
Okay. What can you tell me about your mother?
You know, that's an interesting question because I didn't think much about her during my life. It was only after years that she passed away that I began to think about how terrific a woman she was and how close we were. I'll give you an example of how close we were.
Please.
I used to be out late at night many times when I was younger. We'd go out for all sorts of things, in the movement and outside, and go out with girls. And she would always be waiting up for me when I came home at night, no matter what time. It could be 1 o'clock, it could be 12 o'clock. And I knew she loved fistukim.
She?
She loved fistukim.
Pistachios.
Yes, pistachios. So I always stopped at a place where I had to change trains or change cars. And I bought a couple of packages of fistukim.
Uh-huh.
And we would sit up there eating the fistukim and talking.
You and your mom?
Yeah.
After you would come home late?
Yeah.
So you like had some good quality time with her?
Yes, absolutely. I didn't think of it as anything except that sitting there with my mother would tell me.
Did she ever tell you stories about the old country? Did she ever give information about where she came from?
A little bit. A little bit.
Do you remember anything that's specific or important?
I remember that she was a very good student. My mother was didn't know any Yiddish.
No Yiddish?
No, but everybody spoke Yiddish.
Right.
But she learned the Yiddish in America. And
hold on a second. I'm just going to put this necklace under your shirt so it doesn't interfere with the microphone. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that.
This is my mother's ring.
Yeah, it's here. She was a good...
She had a Russian girlfriend who was a shiksta.
Who had a girlfriend that was a shiksa?
My mother.
Uh-huh, okay. In the old country?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were very good friends, but her shiksta friend wasn't such a good student. And so she used to come to my mother in the evening, so she would help her with the homework and things like that. And one day she came and she said to her, "Close the door quick, quick, so I can get in." So she said, "What's the matter? Nobody will see me coming to a Jewish home." So she slammed the door in her face. And she didn't have anything to do with her anymore.
Tell me about your father. What was his name?
My father's name was Shimshon.
Shimshon.
Yeah, he was born Shimshon, but he was written Samson. Which is not the same, actually.
No.
No, but he was called Samson in English, and Shimshon was his name. And everybody called him Samson,
And
except the intimate group who called him Shimshon.
what did you call him?
Pa.
Pa. And did he speak Yiddish?
Yes, of course. He speaks and wrote and read and whatnot. He was very educated in both Yiddish and Russian.
And Russian and Ukrainian, probably Polish.
I didn't know about all the
Yiddish.
language. I had no idea.
What kind of person was your father? What did he do in Ukraine, in Kiev? Do you know?
He was much distant from us. Not as much as my mother was close. He was distant because he always had a store somewhere in Chicago where he sold working clothes and shoes and stuff like that, mostly to the Goyim.
Do you know what he did in Kiev before they immigrated?
Well, what he did before was, no, I don't know exactly, but I do know that he was a businessman.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
we had a family organization there.
What's that?
We had a family organization in Chicago.
In Chicago?
Yes.
We
were a big family. And they would get together every couple of years. And so I met a lot of people that I really didn't know.
From your family?
Yes.
From your father's family or your mom's family?
My father was like the president.
So why did your father immigrate to Chicago? Do you know?
My father immigrated to Chicago because his wife immigrated and my whole family immigrated. What happened was pogroms started, and it was during the war already.
Right, and I will just say for the record, in 1920, from 1907, there were a lot of pogroms in Ukraine during the Russian Civil War.
Yes. And
it was very bad times.
And, yes, and they also had a farm that used to buy their, they had trees, they grew trees for sale, and and skin, animal skins after slaughtering, mostly cows. And they had leather from it, and that was the family occupation.
Now, what neighborhood are you born in Chicago?
West Side,
West Side?
yes.
Are those the
Definitely West Side.
West Side? Because there's always the West and South. The West, like North Side, East Side, South Side, West
Yes,
Side.
the West
Chicago's
Side.
very
Yes,
territorial.
yes, West Side.
What's the West Side? Can you explain it to me? Like, what's the difference between the West Side?
Roosevelt Road. Did you ever hear of Roosevelt Road? Well, Roosevelt Road is the main road that runs through the whole West Side. And it's a district where, well, the whole district is only Jews.
Okay. What was the neighborhood called?
Trumbull.
Do you remember the address where you lived?
I think it was 14 something, but I
Okay.
don't remember.
That's okay. Conversedo. Conversedo. Tell me about the house that you grew up in. What kind of home was it?
First of all, it was an apartment building.
Okay.
Stone apartment building, red or reddish.
Red bricks?
Yeah, red bricks, I remember. And it was 3 stories of building, and we were on the 3rd story.
Now, what kind of home, as far as Judaism, are you brought up in? What kind of, is it a traditional home? Is it a kosher home? Is it, what kind of house? What kind of
It was a Jewish home, very much like all the Jewish homes around there. People were not strictly religious, but they kept the religion, and they kept the Judaism, and every child went to Hebrew school.
Now, did you go to public school?
Yes.
You went to public school?
Yes. After public school, I went to Hebrew school.
On Sundays? Or every day?
Every day almost. Till I began to ditch.
Did you used to ditch?
Oh, sure. I ditched both schools.
But did you guys... Interesting. It's funny how it doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 100, you could be 50, you could be 7. It doesn't matter how old you are. Everybody ditches school at some point. Not everybody. I did. So I but I didn't have 2 different schools. You had public school? And do you remember the name of the public school that you went to in Chicago?
Yes, Lawrence.
Lawrence?
Yes.
And the name of the Hebrew school?
Herzl or Herzliya, something to do with Herzl.
And so you would go to public school
Actually, the Hebrew school was not a Hebrew school. It was one of these centers, Jewish centers that they built. Where they had baseball and they had everything there.
Like a JCC?
Like a JCC, we were called the ABC.
Why ABC? Can't remember.
At this moment, I can't.
Okay, that's fine.
ABC.
Were you an athletic guy? Were you an
Yes.
athletic kid?
Oh yeah.
Tell me. Tell me.
Yes.
What did you play?
I played fights. I love to fight.
Fights.
Yes. I love to get in fist fights and fights.
Were these
But
organized?
I played baseball. I was sorry I didn't play basketball because basketball became part of my life afterwards.
Did it? Yeah.
Yes.
Now, as a kid growing up in Chicago in the 1930s, right? It's right after the Great Depression is kind of It's happening.
Depression, yeah.
Do you remember the Depression?
I
do
remember
you
the Depression, and I remember the talk of it and so forth. But to tell you how I was affected by it, I couldn't.
Was your family affected by it?
Everybody was affected.
Everybody
by
was
it.
affected by
Yes.
it. Do you remember? There's nothing specific that you remember though that indicate that you can think of that you can tell me about the Depression. You just nothing.
All I can tell you was, first of all, there were elections in the Depression. Hoover was president in the Depression, and Roosevelt became the president
Sure.
after it. And the Depression itself, my immediate family weren't so affected because their businesses still held on. They sold working clothes and working shoes to the working community, yeah, and to the working community. And they usually had it in the Polish or the Russian neighborhoods.
Do you remember the name of your father's shop?
No,
No.
I don't think it had any.
Did you ever go there?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, I was there. I
Not,
spent more time at my grandfather's shop, but I was I was in my father's a few times.
Your grandfather was also in Chicago?
Oh, yes.
From what side?
The whole family lived in one building. The ideal was in Russia that my grandfather would go to America, and when he's economically stable, he brings the whole family. Now, when I say the whole family, I mean the immediate family.
Sure, his kids.
Yeah, because we were quite a big family.
So how many kids did your grandfather have?
I have pictures of them, but...
And his name? Sorry.
My grandfather's name, Yona.
Yona.
He was in Israel before.
He
Came
was.
to Israel before.
Yes, he was in Israel before.
He was.
As a
Bought
Zionist.
some land.
Yes, as a Zionist Jew, it was called.
His name was Yona
Yona. Yona Talgovetsky.
Talgovetsky.
Yes.
So he wasn't your father's father.
No, my mother. My whole family is around my mother.
Okay. So your mother's family was in Chicago before your mother got there.
Right.
Okay. I'm putting the
My mother's
pieces together.
family, my grandfather.
Your grandfather.
Not my
Yona.
mother's family, but my grandfather.
And Yona.
He was in the country.
And Yona. Do you know where Yona was? Where he came from? Do you know where he was born?
I don't think so.
But
we always heard.
But in the Russian Empire.
We always heard, yeah, but we always heard of a certain name, and we discovered afterwards that was not really, that was there where they were stuck for a number of months when they were going to Israel, to America. And it was called Odessa, maybe.
Odessa, in
Yeah.
the Ukraine. It makes sense because it's a port city.
Yeah.
Odessa.
Yeah.
Yes. So.
His grandfather,
Uh-huh.
he came to Israel because they wanted to go, they were Zionists.
Yes.
They wanted to come to Israel.
Uh-huh.
So he came with
I have pictures of them in the Zionist movement here.
He came to Israel, tried to settle down. He had
He bought land?
he bought land.
Yes.
He had a factory.
He had a big house.
factory.
Do you know where?
And during the Depression, everybody moved into this big house.
No, but in Israel, he had a factory. There were, אבא תספר לו על העגלות עם הגלגלים, שסבא שלך היה בישראל, הוא בנה את תל אביב. סבא יונה.
את מזכירה לי משהו עם גלגלים, אבל זה לא נכנס.
הוא ביקש מסבתא לשלוח לו גלגלים לעגלות.
Oh, okay, he needed big wooden wheels. That's what there was.
So he came here
By himself. Came with a group of
Was
friends,
Zionist?
yeah.
before the First
Yeah.
World War or after? Or
My grandma's sister came, no?
He didn't, he came with, yes, he came with my grandmother's sister. And she had a bigger family here, but we weren't connected with them
Okay.
at all.
And
So, yeah.
And he was here in Israel, and he was captured by the Turk.
By the
wasn't
Turkish.
captured. He
In
lived in
jail.
Israel. And during the war,
The First World
First
War.
World War, the
Yeah.
Russians arrested him because
No, the Turks.
The
the Turks arrested
Because he was
him.
Russian.
Right. The Turks arrested him because he was Russian.
Yes, and the Turks did that a lot. The Turks arrested Russian citizens, English citizens. If you were a citizen of a country that Turkey was at war with,
They arrested
they
him.
arrested you.
Exactly.
So he was arrested by the Turks.
Yeah, he was arrested by
Do-
the Turks.
Do you know how long he was here for? Like how long your grandfather was in Palestine, or
He was in Palestine quite a while, I imagine. I can't tell you dates, but it was a good time because
Where-
he had a camel caravan
he had a camel caravan?
that he supplied.
You want some water?
Okay, yeah.
There you go. When you want water, you just tell me, and I'm also a bartender. I'm a
reach
bartender also.
I can reach it.
Okay. So he had a camel.
Caravan, and he carried sand, and well, no, that's my grandpa. Yes, and he carried sand and chatzatz.
So he's basically Aliyah Shniya.
They were building
Before-
Tel Aviv.
No.
They were building Tel Aviv,
Okay, they were building Tel Aviv. Okay.
and there was a need for chatzatz and zivzib.
Sure. Sure.
And that
So-
they bought.
So instead of having dump trucks, he had camels,
Right.
and he was in the construction
Not
business.
camels, it was donkeys.
Donkeys, yeah.
And wagons.
Camels
Uh-huh,
and donkeys.
The
with
ca-
the
yeah.
wooden wheels.
Yes.
that came the,
Yes.
They needed,
So he was your mother's father,
right.
and then he left here
Right, he left
because your mother was not.
First of
Your
all,
mother
he
wasn't
didn't
born,
leave here. They arrested him,
and they deported him.
and they didn't. He was in jail here
Okay.
for a number of months, and then they released him.
Uh huh.
And when they released him, he went to Egypt,
Okay.
he ran away to Egypt.
where all the
So
Jews
they
were
weren't
coming from
drafted to
Israel.
the
Where the
country.
Jews were coming from Israel, and he was in Egypt a number of months. And my grandmother's two brothers were in Israel already for a number of years.
In Chicago.
In Chicago, and they sent him visas to come to America. So my grandfather.
Yeah.
And so he came to America then from Russia.
Where was your mother born? Where does she fit into the whole picture?
She's with him.
She's with him. So
No, Abba. He sent her money to come to America.
Yes, my grandfather sent the money.
She was in Russia.
She was with them in Russia.
No, but my grandfather, Yona, was in Israel that time. She wasn't with him in Israel.
where was she born?
She was born in Russia.
She was born in Russia. So, your grandfather, Yona, when you're a child, he's the patriarch. He's
Yes,
like, and you all lived in the same house, in the same building.
Yes, he bought this big house, and in the Depression, everybody moved there.
In Chicago.
Yeah, about 6 or 7 families.
So you remember all your cousins, you grew up with all your
we grew up
cousins. and-
together.
So tell me, you're from the west side of Chicago.
Right.
Does that make you a Cubs fan or a White Sox fan?
Neither. Everybody depended on, what they. You could have different fans in the same family. I was a Sox fan.
You were a White Sox fan.
Absolutely.
Kaminsky Park,
Right.
right?
Right.
Used to go to
Wrigley Field.
Wrigley Field. Wrigley Field is still standing today.
It is.
Yes, my nephew was there 2 months ago. He drove from Detroit to Chicago to see a game at Wrigley Field. He's religious, not very religious, but he's religious. And then he went to a very famous deli, a kosher deli, called the Romanian.
Well, the Romanians usually had delis.
Yeah.
They were the ones that had the delis.
Yeah.
The Romanians.
And he got kosher corned beef there and this.
Yeah, corned beef and hot dogs.
So you're a White Sox fan.
Right.
You're getting into fist fights.
Right.
What are your when is the first time that you encounter anti-Semitism as a kid?
I practically didn't encounter any anti-Semitism because for maybe 40 miles in each direction. They're all Jews. There was one big Jewish neighbor on the west side, and it was connected to the north side, and it was connected to the west side, and so forth and so on. And they were all Jews.
So
We had one black in the school, and he was my friend, and my mother said, Schwarze Achad, and he stood being a young man. I ate in his house, he ate in our house.
So there's no anti-Semitism that you're dealing with as a kid?
No,
as a kid.
I heard of it, but I was never exposed to it.
So you're basically growing up in a very protective
right.
community
In Chicago.
in
right.
Chicago.
Right.
There's
a book on
and
Chicago at that period.
And also the public school that you go to is mostly Jewish as well.
Right, except the teachers.
Except the teachers.
Yes.
Now, your family, when you're growing up in Chicago, your family situation is quite, let's say, socially and economically, you guys are quite stable. You're okay.
Compared to the rest of them.
You got food on your table.
Right.
You're okay.
Right.
How early can you go back in your head and think about when you were a child, when you were 10, 12, 8?
Pretty much.
What do you want to be? Do you remember what interests you? Can you? I was.
You know, I was a child in Chicago when the Italian, what's his name, was very famous.
Al Capone.
Al Capone. And we used to take messages for them sometimes. And give you a $10 bill and send this to Waco, bring this to Waco and bring it back at this time.
Really?
Yes.
There was the South Side and the North Side gang. There was Al Capone.
Yeah, well, they weren't connected.
No, they fought each other. It was very blood. There was a very bloody gang wars. I don't know if you know, but Chicago.
Yes,
I mean,
of course.
so there was Bugs Moran.
Yeah.
And there was Al Capone.
Yeah, but we didn't know Black Moran.
So you would run messages for these guys?
Yeah, and they'd grab you by the collar. Listen, here's $10. I want you to go to what do you call it, and give them this piece of paper, or tell them this, tell them we're meeting here.
And how old were you? Like 10?
Yeah, something like that.
And they just give you cash?
Yeah, certainly cash. When they give me a check.
Very interesting. Did your mother know you did this?
No. No, she wouldn't agree.
Who knew you did this? Just your
maybe,
friends?
Maybe my sister.
Maybe your sister?
Yeah.
She was younger than you?
5 years.
5 years younger.
Yeah. But
She's still alive.
She's still alive? Where does she live?
Chicago.
Chicago.
Not Chicago, but
In the outskirts, in the suburbs.
Yeah.
And remind me her name?
Dina.
Dina. Tell me about do you belong to any Jewish youth movements as a kid?
Personally, I belonged to Hashomer Tzair when I was 11 years old. Since I was 11 years old.
You were in Hashomer Tzair.
Tell him how you got into the Shomer Tzair.
I would love to hear how you got into the Shomer Tzair. Take your time.
Okay, I'm just going back a bit.
Yeah.
Ah, now I remember.
Okay.
Friday night was a nice evening, warm in Chicago, and people out on the lawn and so forth and so on. And Friday night they had it in the cannon. The cannon was Shomer Tzair. They had meetings, dances and singing, and hartzot on Zionism. And we came by, we saw these windows open with these girls and boys dancing, and it just snowed. So we took snowballs and began to heave them in through the window on the girls' legs. So the guys came out, chased us, and then they began to yell, "Don't run, we're not going to hit you. We just want to talk to you." And they told us about this organization of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and Jewish, and we have uniforms just like the Americans, and we could belong in there. and we joined. That's how we joined up. Me and my cousin and my friend Sammy, all three of us.
And you were 11 years old when you joined Hashomer Tzayim?
Yes.
Did your parents have any objection?
No, not at all. There was a Jewish organization, it was a Zionist organization. As far as they were concerned, it was kosher. And the Madrichim would come and speak to the parents too.
And you, of course, knew about the land of Israel from your grandfather.
Right, for my family. I'll show you pictures in Russia of their Zionist organization.
I'm just trying to think right now. It's roughly 1934, 1935, 36. Roosevelt's president of the United States.
Right.
The New Deal is kicking in.
Right.
Yeah. There's
We participated in elections.
I'm sure.
We ran from one neighborhood to another where there were.
Sure. Now, Chicago is notorious. Chicago. You want some water?
No, it's okay. I can handle it.
Chicago is very notorious in the 1930s, especially in the late 1930s. There was a very big German Nazi party in Chicago, and they had a lot of rallies in Chicago. Do you remember any of this? Do you remember?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
When
The first time I actually met Goyim was in high school.
and do you, how was that a weird experience for you?
Yes, at the beginning it was because everything was Jewish and everybody was Jewish.
And all of a sudden it's
and
not.
all of a sudden it's not.
Yeah. Now tell me, if you, and again I'm trying to stick to the age group that we're talking about now, which is like 10 to like 15. Do you remember having a crush on any specific girl at that time when you were growing up?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Rena was her name. Dark complexion, pretty girl. And they moved. So I went to her neighborhood, which was in the same district that I did.
But for you, it seemed very far away.
Yeah,
right?
And the guys there are not my guys.
They're not your guys.
What are you doing here? Get the hell out of here. You don't belong here. And so I went and I got a few guys to beat them up. And our leader of the guys that I brought got the hell kicked out of him. And I was crying like a baby, and I was so ashamed.
Do you remember
I was crying, and I brought them all there and everything.
Do you remember how old you were roughly?
No, I don't. I don't.
Rena.
Rena, yes.
Interesting. Now, are you a good student?
No, I'm a very poor student.
Why?
Because the teachers are very poor teachers. That's a fact. And I have a knack for being able to decide what kind of person I'm talking with or meeting, what kind of person they are.
Yeah.
The teachers were shit. And some of them didn't do anything but
Sure.
sit there at the desk. And mechanical drawing I wanted to learn, but he never taught us.
So did you want to go to a technical high school? You wanted to learn?
No, I went to a technical high school, not because I was interested in it, but because my brother went to a technical high school. It was Crane Tech, and it had both technical and regular studies. combined, where you have a wood shop and
Sure.
electricity and a few others.
Engineering.
Engineering later.
Later.
Yeah.
But did, so when I'm asking you about what kind of student you were, I'm just trying to understand what kind of teenager you are. Like where's your mindset? Are you like when I was a teenager, I wanted to study film. Yeah, I wanted to be a filmmaker. When I was a child, I wanted to be a bus driver. So you know we
I wanted to be a baseball player.
Okay, let's talk about that. What position did you play?
Second.
Second base. So you were
Yeah.
quick.
Yes.
Are you a lefty or a righty?
Righty.
Who was your idol as a child on the baseball field? Who was your like?
It was not Babe Ruth.
Okay, well he's in New York.
Yeah. I don't remember.
Okay.
My
Okay.
father was
But
mostly
later
in the
on, as a
streets.
teenager,
In the streets.
in the
Stickball. You
teenager,
guys were playing stickball.
and what? No, yes, but as a teenager, I got into basketball,
Okay.
and that became my
Your passion.
passion.
But as a kid, you did play baseball.
yes,
Yeah, in the streets.
on the street.
On the streets. Stickball.
A car came, we
that's it.
moved, and then moved back. We
Stickball.
also played hockey on the streets.
Well, that's a huge sport in
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yes,
So you played hockey,
yes, on the
played
streets.
baseball.
Yeah, but we didn't have ice skates,
No. Okay.
and we just ran, and we had sticks,
Right.
and that's how we played.
Just
hockey.
like stickball.
Yeah.
There's no word for stickball in hockey, but that's what you did.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was just neighborhood organized
Right.
on the street.
Right.
But basketball, you took it to another. You took that to another
Well,
level.
Basketball, we had the ABC already.
That was the JCC.
Yeah, where they invited kids to come and they studied Hebrew, some, and some who had no connection with Hebrew or Zionism, they did other things. And
Hold on.
I became interested in basketball, but too late to really become part of it. Because in high school I could have been a basketball player.
Were you tall?
No, I was not tall, but I was tough.
So you're growing up in the time of John Dillinger.
Right,
You're growing up in the time of Lou Gehrig.
right.
You're growing up in the time of. I can't think of any hockey.
Hockey, I didn't know.
Right.
I had nothing to do with hockey.
Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio, certainly.
Was there as a
Joe DiMaggio came from the neighborhoods.
well, he's from San Francisco.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he's Italian.
Yeah.
He came from Italian neighborhood.
I'm going to ask you something. My grandmother was. It's a question about racism, about anti-Semitism. My grandmother was older than you, and she was born in New York, and she grew up on the Lower East Side, and she would always tell me that her experience with anti-Semitism was only with Irish people. But but not with Italians.
No,
Even though they're both
they're neighbors on the west side.
So I want to ask you, because Chicago's a very Irish city,
Yes.
a Catholic city.
Yes.
Big Irish community, Catholic. Big Polish community, Catholic. Big Ukrainian community, Catholic. Big Italian, Catholic. I'm going to ask you again, you don't remember feeling when you're in high school or like...
High school is different already.
Okay.
Completely different. We're mixed. There are Jews and there are Goyim, and we're not a majority.
Right.
We're not a minority, but we're not a majority.
Right.
And we were very close to the Italians. Italian neighborhood was right near us. Although we would have fist fights with them, and in the street something started, and the Jews and Italians were fighting, but afterwards they were friends.
What was the Italian neighborhood in Chicago at that time? Do you remember?
Yes. If you give me just a minute.
I'll give you 5 minutes.
Sacramento Boulevard.
That was the street.
Yeah, that was one of the streets that was
Okay, that's good enough.
Italian neighborhood.
What kind of city is Chicago when you're growing up there? It's a serious city. It's not like
I'll tell you something.
it's not like Milwaukee.
I knew Chicago very well, from my point of view, because I cut school so often. I had an Italian boyfriend.
I need you not to touch the microphone.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. You used to cut school.
I had an Italian boyfriend, and the first thing we would do was we would go down to the basement. His father made wine, and we would drink a little bit, and then we'd go out and we'd walk all over Chicago, hitchhike and walk over. The main thing is when you hitchhiked, it wasn't hitchhiking. You would jump on the back of trucks.
Eat like that.
Yeah, you had to get off at a stoplight, you know, because otherwise you have to walk a lot.
So you're exploring Chicago.
I knew Chicago up and down through the ditching of school, and I think I learned a lot more from those ditching school than I would in school.
And did you enjoy ditching school? I mean, was it like?
Yeah, we had fun, the two of us. We had our.
Do you remember? Do you remember his name?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, but you guys were good buddies.
Yes.
And you were, how old are you? You're like 15, 16?
Yeah, maybe that, maybe even younger.
Okay.
And he was very worried his father would catch us in the basement drinking wine.
Never did.
We'd kill him. But we did, and I did a lot of things. We mostly learned about the different neighborhoods and the different things. They were building here with a crane, and they were building it with this and that. And we'd hang around there and watch and see.
You also went into movie.
Into movies?
Oh,
You went to go see movies?
Going to movies, it was very easy going into
walking
movies.
backwards.
Yes.
Who's walking backwards?
The movies
where
had an entrance where you went in and had an entrance where you went out.
Okay.
And now going in,
You have to pay.
you have to pay. Going out, there are doors that open out into the street.
Right.
And we would stand there and wait till somebody came out and go in. But that's how we went to the Chicago area.
backwards.
You know, Chicago has an L, which afterwards became like a subway.
Yes, yes.
Yes. And we would go in the L too. The L had steps that you had to go up to go in and pay. And to go out, you had an entrance where it was free.
So you're like ditching school, getting into movie cinemas, you know, ditching in there, ditching in the public transportation system. You're like
A hoodlum.
well, I don't want to use the word hoodlum, but you know, I mean, I'm sure you're a good boy, and but school is not important for you.
No.
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 You're like.
Although I love to read. Why did I love to read? Because number one, I had a teacher in 3rd grade that liked me, and she sat with me and helped me.
Nice.
Second of all, we had a big library, Stevens Library, Stevens something. And it was right across the street from us. And they had a little Italian, beautiful little girl that came, a woman, and she came and she told us stories, and then she would stop and say, you could come to the library and take the books out. And she helped me. And my mother pushed me to read.
Mm-hmm.
And she knows my mind was outside. So she says, read 10 pages and you can go outside.
Amazing.
And I couldn't read 10 pages because I got interested. And I would read more. So these 3 women actually pushed me to read. And I loved reading.
What kind of books did you like to read?
Anything that was well written and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Anything.
Anything. So you would also read the newspaper, a book?
No,
or,
I wouldn't read the newspaper.
Okay, so you're okay. Because at this time that we're talking right now, between the two world wars, we have a lot of very famous American literature. Ernest Hemingway, Scott Fitzgerald.
Okay, I read all of them.
Yeah.
All of them.
All Quiet on the Western Front.
All of them.
Yeah. Farewell to Arms.
The one with the dog, I was the one.
J.D. Salinger, Catcher on the Rye.
And there was a famous dog that belonged to.
Lassie? No.
No. It
That
an
was also.
Alaskan dog.
That was also. Now, so I'm okay. So what I'm trying to do right now is just talk to you and kind of feel
I understand.
what kind of kid you are. You know,
Yeah,
you
I
like to
understand,
fight.
yeah.
You like to read. Very interesting.
And very, very always about anti-Semitism, even though I didn't face it. If I heard anything against the Jew, I would be the first one in there with my fists.
Do you remember any incident?
Well, in high school I did.
Okay,
In
please.
high school where there are other kids still
What happened?
I would get into fights about anti-Semitism.
They would pick on you,
And
or
I had another good, in high school I had a friend, an Irish guy. His name was Dennis Ryan. And not in high school. We already lived in San Francisco because the war was on.
wait a second. Okay, you move. Okay, so
After
We
you
didn't move.
finished high school,
We still lived in Chicago in the same house. But I moved to San Francisco because the government gave us work. First of all, they
So
told
after
us
high
to
Wait a
go,
second.
finished high
and
school.
I went and took up welding.
okay, well, we're gonna get to that in a sec. You're telling me about some incident with some Irish kid in high school.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't think he was Irish. I think he was Polish.
same thing.
And this Irish kid that I was going with all the time, as soon as somebody said something about a Jew, he would grab me and says, "Yeah, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it."
Do you? I'm gonna ask you about. Do you remember anything? You're in the States, and do you have any connection with Palestine? Do you have cousins here? Do you have?
America here?
No, I understand, but do you hear about, like, for example, 1936? There's the Arab Revolt here. So 3 years of what we today call an Intifada. You know. Is there anything that you remember? Anybody from the the Jewish community in Palestine coming to Chicago to talk, or any kind of?
There were
We
in
had
the
Shlichim.
Shomer Hatzair.
We had Shlichim in Shomer Hatzair. Every city had them. They were all connected to New York.
You had this in the Shomer Hatzair, this guy that was doing the השביתות,
Strikes.
the strikes. What was his name that you admired in the Shomer Hatzair?
Did you have anybody in the Shomer Hatzair who was like somebody that you kind of looked up to? A
That I
majority
what?
that you looked up to, that you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Milt
Milt.
Schnitzer.
And Milt was from where?
He was from Chicago.
From Chicago, and he was
Yeah.
older than you.
Yes. He was my drink afterwards in the Shomer Hatzair.
He was your.
Although he was not a Zionist. And he joined us Shomer Hatzair from the outside, like. He was like a foreigner for us.
Okay.
And he became our madrich.
Okay.
And he taught us to read books that are part of the labor union, a part of the world. And he says the biggest hero was Nehru of India. And so we all read Nehru's book, and of course,
Mahatma Gandhi.
Mahatma Gandhi, and actually Mahatma Gandhi, you know, he went to where did he go? He left India, and he went to. Never mind.
Okay. So
But tell him about the kuppah that you had.
The Coupa?
Yeah.
Yes, I had a lot of money because I was discharged and I was 30% invalid for my, so.
What's that?
No, he was in charge of the kupa.
הייתה גזבר? You were the
Boy,
גזבר?
I
No,
was,
he
right,
was.
right.
What
And I
happened?
gambled too, with the kids in the neighborhood.
So you would take the money and go play
Yeah,
dice?
sure. I did. I played poker and played dice.
Wait a minute.
Crap, we called it.
So you would take you guys had a little fund,
Yeah, we all had to give us a certain amount.
and then you would take the money from everybody?
I had the money from the Coupa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one day Mill said, "Yeah, bring the money. We're gonna steal the money."
We're
And
going,
he counted the money. He said, "Yeah, there's more money there than there should be." I said, "Yeah, I won a little bit in poker." And so he sat me down and gave me a big lecture.
do you remember that lecture?
Of course. I loved Milton anyhow.
How much older was he than you?
About 3 years.
Okay. Same generation, just
Yeah.
a few years older.
And he was a very clever guy. He went into.
The union. He was in the union.
Oh yes, he joined the union where he worked, and they had a big strike there. And he was a little guy, so they brought in scabs.
Yeah.
So he would pick one of the big scabs.
Yeah.
And
Now-
jump on him
Now,
and start a fight there all the time.
do you remember the months? I have a question for you. Do you remember Kristallnacht happening in Germany? The night of the broke.
I must have been in contact with that as I got older,
Sure.
but I don't remember it at that age.
Okay. Do you remember World War II breaking out?
Yes.
Before the Americans joined in not 41 and 39
Yes.
when Poland was invaded.
Yes.
How old were you? You're 17?
I'm already pretty close to Gios.
Yeah, almost.
17.
You're
yeah.
17 years old.
Yes, right.
17 years old.
Right.
Now, are guys your age who are 17 or 18, you don't think there's going to be a world war. You're thinking that it's going to be a European issue. Or do you remember what the feeling was before you joined the Marines and before you went into your service? You're 17 years old. You're in high school. World War II breaks out. Everybody knows already about Hitler, the Nuremberg laws,
Oh yes.
anti-Semitism. Jews are running away from Germany. They can't get into America. They can't get into America.
Yeah, it's difficult. I can get in, but it's difficult.
Do you remember this period right before the war breaks out?
Yeah, certainly I did. Certainly I do.
Do you remember, are you guys talking about it in Hashomer Tzair?
Yes, we are talking about it. And actually, that's not the reason I joined the Marines.
Okay.
We were watching a movie of, what was it, one of the islands where MacArthur says, "I will return."
Philippines.
No, it wasn't the Philippines.
Luzon.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, when he says, "I shall return," right? I
I
remember.
shall
Right.
return.
Right.
And Ryan turned to me and said, "Yaakov, let's turn the Marines." I said, "Okay."
We're gonna get to that in a sec.
So we go join the Marines.
Wait. You finish high school.
Yes.
Called
At that point, I wasn't.
Provecto.
What?
Oh, Corregidor.
Corregidor.
Corregidor, yes,
Right,
Corregidor, yes,
yeah.
Corregidor. Wow,
Right.
So, you finish high school. You graduate?
Yes. But
Okay.
I graduated because I promised my mother I would. She says I must graduate. Because if I don't graduate,
You're a dead man.
I would never be able to go to college.
Yeah.
And college wasn't interesting for me, but it was something that was important for her. And so, when we were finishing high school, we had graduation. We had tests and so
But you
forth.
came back to school after you were
Oh,
in
right.
for
I
a few
wouldn't take,
months.
when I was 16. I
You
came
were
back to
doctor,
school.
A doctor,
I was 16 years old, and I decided to go back to school because I wanted to graduate. It was getting close to it on this and that. And they wouldn't accept me as a 16-year. You don't have to go back to school. So we were raising money for Zionism on one of the streets. There was a big hospital. Yeah, on Sinai Hospital on the west side. And we were, with tags, raising money for some Zionist cause.
קרן הקיימת?
I don't
The
know,
JNF?
Probably, yeah, we had Karen Guyabit kids.
Yeah.
And I saw all the tables. I had to go to the toilet. I went in there, and the lobby's full with desks. And on every desk is these plaques of the hospital forms, So I took one and put it in my shirt and walked out. And I went home and I wrote a letter to the school board, telling them and to my teacher. I wasn't in school because I had a what do you call it, operation. I had what's it called?
A hernia?
No.
hernia.
Or
No.
appendicitis?
What?
Appendicitis?
Maybe.
Appendix?
Appendix, yeah.
Yeah, the part of that doesn't have any function in the body.
Right.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
were
so
there,
I had, that I was operated on in the Sinai Hospital on this date.
So you got a real criminal mind. You're like, you know how to get out of situations.
I didn't think so.
You're going into movie theaters. You're drinking red wine in a basement with an Italian.
I don't think that's criminal. No.
Now,
I think a lot of kids did a lot of things that.
sure. But it must be fascinating as a kid.
But I was never touched the dope.
Excuse me?
I never touched dope
Drugs.
till this
Right.
date. Not because I was against it. I just didn't get around. It wasn't my sort of thing.
But his mother knew about it afterwards,
Knew about what?
about the letter that he wrote.
Oh yeah, that he
No,
forged?
she didn't.
Yeah, she went to school.
She got knew about it later.
Later,
When
yeah, that's
I
what you
gave
say.
them the letter and they accepted me back to school.
Anyways, I want to ask you again about, and we're going to get to finishing high school very soon, and basically, but growing up in Chicago in the 30s, it must have been an exciting time to live in a city like Chicago because...
Well, if you think about it now, it's an exciting time, but I don't know if we
No,
thought
I'm talking about the 30s. I mean, you have, America's coming out of a depression.
Right.
There's Al Capone.
Right.
There's so many like
All sorts of
Chicago is
things,
like it's
And there are little gangs everywhere.
And there was this
Both
street.
Jewish gangs and...
Did your family keep kosher in the house?
My mother did till a certain date. One of my aunts came over and screwed everything up, so she said, the hell with it.
Now, when you graduate high school, it's 19...
My whole family came to see me in a gown. They wouldn't believe
They
it.
didn't believe it.
You know how I got past all the exams.
How?
For those who didn't take the exams, they had another thing you could do. You had a certain list of books. You could pick one of them, or 3 books, something like that. So 3 books, read it, and give
A report, a book report.
And that's what I did.
And do you remember?
I read. I'll tell you what the name of one of them was. Just a minute, it'll come.
No problem.
Hunters was the end, but it had to do with finding the different children's diseases. It was it was an important book at the time.
But
And the authors were very important
משהו
too.
עם חיידקים.
something with insects.
Hunters, virus,
Right.
and
Okay. And you graduated.
Yes, and I graduated.
So
With a gown and everything.
we're gonna keep filming for another 20 minutes, and then we're gonna end up
Maxwell Street,
Maxwell Street
yeah,
in Chicago.
in Chicago.
Did you ever hear Maxwell?
No, I haven't. What is Maxwell
It
Street?
was the fascinating place I ever saw in my life. It
Please.
doesn't exist anymore.
Tell me what it was.
No, it
What-
doesn't exist. We looked-
Chicago was a market. I don't know who started it or where it started. I was a kid that it existed, and they tried to make me go there and work. My brother worked there all the time selling
It's like a food market.
No, it's an everything market.
Everything.
Everything. And gypsies are there, and Indians, and everything in the world at Maxwell Street. And it was very famous for that, everything. Tourists would come there to see it. And we, if we
one
wanted
of
to
the
buy
attractions
clothes,
of Chicago
we
was
wanted to go clothes, we would go there because our uncles were pullers. We know what a puller is? He's the guy that pulled you from the street into the store. Once you get into the store, you don't go out without buying something. And so we would buy all our clothes there.
In Maxwell Street.
and
Yes.
there were also circus there and
Everything.
shows.
Everything you think of, gypsies selling this, selling that, putting swords
Through their mouth.
down the. All
So
that
you would
was-
go. Did you work there or you?
No, they wanted me to work there. I went there once, and I said, not for me.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not going to sell things and try to get guys to buy. It wasn't for me. But they had everything there.
Big cinemas will open there.
So it was like a freak show.
Movie theaters.
Yes, but everything, every shop had pullers. And they said if a puller pulled your in, you never got out without buying something.
Of course. So that's what they called it. It was a profession, a puller.
Yes.
What do you do? I'm a puller.
Chicago
Yes.
attraction,
Right.
Maxwell.
I bring you in.
Right.
We looked
Amazing.
for it.
It
All
doesn't
my
exist.
uncles were
They
pullers.
built the highway.
I'm sure.
there.
I'm sure.
They
I'm
built
sure. I can see by the
houses.
picture that it's just classic. You know.
And Americans went and built a new. They built a new neighborhood, a new street, and they cut right through Palestine.
Palestine?
Maxwell
Street. They built out. Yeah, they built the highway. They probably, you know.
Built a highway
Yeah,
through
it's
it.
it's like
built the new university.
we
I
have-
went there with Leah to see it. I said, God Almighty!
It's gone.
It was the greatest thing in this city, and they moved it with
It
this
was
highway.
really a tourist attraction.
Yeah.
Maxwell
No,
Street.
it's Maxwell Street.
Yeah. It was very big.
All the owners, mostly all were Jewish, and mostly all of the sellers were Jewish, like the pullers and all those. And most of the buyers were goyim,
And tourists.
except Jews and tourists.
Yeah.
Except Jews who had a good connection there, they would go buy there.
Now, before we get to the army and everything, and you going to San Francisco, I want to just touch a little bit on the basketball, because you said that in high school you were introduced to basketball.
Yes, but it was too late.
Too late for what?
I should have started playing basketball earlier.
And if you would have started earlier, then what?
I would have got somewhere.
You would
Because-
have gone pro.
No, pro I wouldn't, because I didn't have the physical proportions for it.
Okay.
But basketball would have, I would have been semi-professional.
Interesting. And
Because I was a fighter. I mean, I fought for every
what about boxing?
Boxing was something on the side. That's
Maxwell
just for
was in
fun.
the street.
No Jewish mother is going to have her son be a professional boxer.
Well, not true.
No?
One a professional and one not Max Baer. There was one time when there were 3 champion boxers that were Jewish. Max Baer.
In the United States.
In Chicago.
In Chicago.
Yes, Max Baer. I can't remember his name.
And
his mother, we used to go to her show because he would come visit her on the holidays.
Well, in Detroit, we had Hank Greenberg. Does the name ring a bell?
No.
Hank Greenberg.
Hank
Greenberg. He was Jewish baseball player for the Detroit Tigers.
Uh-huh. They had also an outfielder and one of Pittsburgh, I think it was, who was famous Jew outfielder.
So
you one of the great hitters.
We're gonna wrap up in a bit, but I just wanna talk to you a little bit about what happens with you after high school. What happens after high school? Where do you go? What are you doing?
I went after high school. I went to work in different welding shops all over the country. And then I got this job through the government in San Francisco.
Okay, how old are you? 18, 19?
20.
20?
19 or 20.
So you're working as a...
It was when World War II was...
Yeah, but I don't know if America was already in the war. Because America only joined in December 41.
They joined the war when you were after high school?
Yeah.
They joined
When I was in high school, they joined the war, yes.
When you
Or
finished
maybe
the
a little
war,
after.
After. I
don't
think after,
remember.
because I think you finished high school in
I don't
1939.
remember the dates, yes.
But, so you worked in different places as a welder.
Yeah.
So that's like the profession.
Making big money.
I'm sure.
I remember today.
You made
My father had a friend who was an insurance agent. He was an insurance agent, and he made it. I have a ring, yes, that's my wife's wedding ring. And no, my wife's, what do you call it? Well, it's my wife's ring, anyhow. I keep it there. So I always touch it. But
It's okay, don't worry about it. It's all good. That's good.
But
you were welding. You were working as a welder, and you were making good money.
And I learned all kinds of different welding.
It's a good
I
trade.
would go to the shop when they had special welding, and they pay special money.
And what cities did you live in? Like
I lived in Chicago.
Okay.
I was welding from Chicago.
Okay.
I remember I get in the middle of winter in the snow, and I take a bus and go to the shop and work as a welder. And
were you living at home?
I was living at
It
home.
was 1941 when he finished high school.
It was 1941 when he finished high school.
Right
Okay.
after Pearl Harbor.
Right after. Do you? Okay. Where are
Barney Ross was an American Jewish boxer.
Barney Ross?
Yes,
I'll look him up.
and he was a lightweight,
Mm-hmm.
middleweight champion.
Where are you when Japan attacks Pearl Harbor? Do you remember where you were?
Yes, I was in Chicago. I was in Chicago, and I was living at home.
It was high school.
And me and my Irish friend, who welded together, and we lived together. We went to San Francisco on a job, and we worked on the welding on the ships that the Americans were building.
Really?
Yes.
On the Pacific Fleet.
Richmond.
Right.
Richmond?
Richmond Bay.
Richmond, California.
Richmond,
Yeah.
California.
Big shipyard.
Is it near San Francisco?
Yes.
Liberty ships.
We lived in San
Kaiser
Francisco, but
Uh-huh.
we worked in Richmond.
And you're with your friend
Yeah, me and my Irish friend.
from Chicago.
Ryan, yeah.
And you're living in San Francisco. This is the first time you basically leave home.
Actually, yeah.
No?
Yeah,
You're an adult?
Except as kids, we'd go to the summer camp.
Yeah, but that's
Uh,
a little bit something different.
Yeah.
San Francisco is a very booming city.
It's not only a booming city, it's really a very interesting city.
Yeah.
It's called the Homo City and and this and that. And
What was
they warned us, be careful of the homos and so forth.
in San Francisco? Even at that time they were talking about it. So it was okay. Because today it's known like that for
And
for.
we had a flat together, and in those days they had flats. They rented you flats with supper, with dinner,
Wow.
and all the people who rented rooms had their supper together in the evening. And so we lived that way for a few years. And then
So you were welding
Yeah.
ships.
In
Right.
Kaiser's, what's the name? Kaiser troop ships. They
right,
built them
right.
together.
Right, and we were working with Okies.
What's Okies?
Yes,
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma?
yeah.
The one who ran
You know
from
why?
From
But
Pearl
they had
Harbor?
this big terrible
No.
problem in Oklahoma, where they had a terrible
Waves of
tragedy
rage.
with all their crops because the winds took them away and
Uh-huh.
they didn't get rain.
Grapes of rage.
And all the farmers sold their
Steinbeck.
farms for nothing. And they came to work in San Francisco.
So you had a lot of people from Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah, most of the workers were
Okies.
Okies.
Hokies. Okay. Okies?
Okies.
Okies. Okay. Okay. Because
There was a Kaiser Richmond, Kaiser troop ship. They were
Yeah.
Were you-
building the ships. Abba tell him about the Kaiser, the Jewish from the.
Afterwards,
the
he built cars in Israel.
He
didn't
built
succeed.
cars. Then he began to build ships for the war. So Abba was building on his ship.
uh-huh.
I remember my father told me, his best friend who was an insurance agent, made a lot of money. He was getting his son interested in going into something. And he said to him, "Yeah, please come and check him $1,000." He said, "What? What kind of $1,000?" He said, "The worker." He said, "Yeah." He went and got him to show them his checks. I asked for $1,000 each week because we worked overtime too.
Did you make good money working in San Francisco?
Very good money.
And you were
I gave it
saving
to
it.
the couponos who married here till they pissed me off.
Were you sending money home or you were
No, I had a bank account that my mother took care of.
And are you involved in San Francisco in Jewish life there at all, or are you just working?
No,
No,
I
you're just
just
working.
worked there and went to opium.
That's it.
You
Working.
made some friends from Shomer Tzair there, no?
Yes,
Yeah.
I contacted.
But you weren't active there like you were in Chicago.
No.
And we're gonna end right now, and tomorrow we're gonna start to talk about you joining the Marines. But before we finish right now, I just want to ask you: is there anything that we didn't talk about right now in this period of your life? Or
I can't remember, but there
You
must
didn't-
be.
You
I'm-
didn't tell him about the Kaiser ship, Abba. You have to explain about the Kaiser ship, how they built them, how they weld them, how you
Well,
weld
they
them.
welded decks and everything by automatic big welding machines. But we had to do the below decks, and we had to do the what do you call it?
and these are battleships, or these are
No, these are not battleships.
civilian
ships.
ships.
No,
I
it
had
was
to-
for war.
It was for war, because everything was for war.
But it
It
wasn't
It
battleships.
wasn't battleships.
It was like carriers. It was like transportation.
Troop carriers.
Troop to transport troops.
Tremendous ships, and we
Okay.
had to do 2 welds.
So you at this age, you have a trade.
Yeah,
I mean, you're full on,
right.
You're
without
welding.
even realizing how I.
and you're making good money too,
yes,
no?
Yes, very good money.
And it's part of the war effort.
Yes, but I'm going to the washroom.
Okay, I think. Hold on. We're gonna stop.